Good evening folks, 21st Century Caveman here. Hope everybody's safe, hope everybody's well. So in this video we'll be papering over the ceiling in the hall, stairs and landing. Now as you can see, the ceiling has been boarded over with plasterboard, but it's not the normal type of plasterboard, which is a light grey colour. As you can see, this is a sort of a pinky reddy colour, and there is a reason for that, because this is fire retardant plasterboard. And I've put it up there for a reason, which will be the subject of another video. So it's been plasterboarded then, and all of the joins and the edges have been taped and sealed. Now in this video, rather than just showing you small clips of me fixing the different sheets of lining paper, I'm going to concentrate mainly on this one. And the reason is quite simply because this is the first one and it's the most difficult. And the trouble is, when you're making videos for YouTube, it's easy just to edit out all the awkward bits, all the difficult bits, but that can be a little bit disingenuous, because for those of the audience who are looking to get into DIY or to try and improve their confidence and their skills doing something like this, it must be quite disheartening when you see videos like this whereby all of the tricky bits have been edited out and you're just left with the really easy bits, and it looks as somebody's papered over a whole ceiling within about 15 minutes without any issues or problems at all, and that simply isn't reality. Now I must make it clear that I am not a professional decorator. I'm a pen pusher. I work in office for a living, and I'm not professing to have any particular expertise at decorating, but this is the way I decided to approach this ceiling. So I'm sure there'll be a number of different ways of doing this, but what I've chosen is I've chosen to start basically on the section of the ceiling which I think is going to be the most difficult, and that's where we have the light pendant hanging from the ceiling and also a smoke alarm. So what I've decided to do then basically is to draw a line as square as possible which follows the line of the smoke alarm and the light pendant, and as you can see there's a line on the ceiling there, so that's what I'm going to follow basically with the edge of this first strip of paper. So as you can see, this isn't easy at all, and another reason for that is quite simply because the paper I'm using is not your conventional lining paper. It's 1 metre wide, so this is about twice as wide as your normal lining paper. So anyway, look, we made a bit of a start on this. I'm just cutting out divots where the light pendant is and also the smoke alarm, just so I can get around those and flatten down the paper. And I've also fashioned a prop in the shape of a T, which I'm using just to press the lining paper against the ceiling. I'm also using a 10-inch taping knife. Now this taping knife is used traditionally by drywallers. Now I've actually dulled the edges of these just to make sure it doesn't rip the paper, and once you've prepared these surfaces, as you can see, it makes really quick, light work of fixing any sort of paper into place really. Now this is actually going to be a little bit easier on this lining paper because it's a special sort of lining paper. It's made of different sorts of fibres which have been brought together, which make this paper virtually impossible to tear. It's absolutely fantastic, and if you're just an amateur decorator, an amateur DIYer such as myself, then it gives you lots of options really. You can make loads of mistakes and it's always forgiven. You can always get away with it. So this is something which I would highly recommend, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't go back to using conventional lining paper after using this stuff here. Now it is about 1200 grade, so it's not the thickest lining paper I've used on the other ceilings. The other ceilings had 1400 grade lining paper, but this, and also incidentally, this is translucent. You can see through it basically, so when I actually put this up on the ceiling and the walls, you will be able to see where I've filled the surfaces behind them. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean to say that it's so thin that it isn't doing its job. This will give a lovely flat smooth surface, as you'll see at the end of this video footage. Now, if this was normal lining paper, after all this messing around, that paper would have ripped into several pieces by now. It just is nowhere near as strong as this stuff here, look. So to use this, it is a little bit thinner. It's about 1200 grade, as I think I've already mentioned, but it's very, very forgiving, and you can be a right plum to get like I am, and you can still get away with it. Leave it like that for a minute, I think. Someplace where let's calculate the cut. Okay. So I'm actually on a hop-up at the moment, leaning over the stairwell and just doing the best really just to position this. And once I've actually got the paper nice and flat and pasted as much of it as possible to the ceiling, I'm going to start trimming back the edges really, just so there's not as much to mess around with, and also there's less weight, so it makes it easier to cut. So here then, I'm just trimming the paper down, just use one of these little knives with the snap-off blades, just trim it back, makes it easier to deal with, makes it lighter and easier to handle. So this video then is pretty much just running straight through. and you know, you're pretty much seeing this in real time really. This first sheet of paper took me about somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes to actually put up, and I did the complete ceiling in about 2.5 to 3 hours. The other thing I'll mention regarding the materials I'm using is the adhesive. So as I've already mentioned, this is stuff which you actually paste the wall first. You don't actually paste the lining paper, although you can if you want to, but there's absolutely no point or advantage whatsoever in doing that. It's going to take a lot longer and you're wasting loads of time unnecessarily. So the adhesive, then you roll it on when you undo the big tub it comes in. It smells straight away of PVA, so obviously there must be quite a high PVA content there. But the great thing about this stuff is, apart from the fact that it's an absolutely fantastic adhesive, it's very, very strong, it's the fact that it doesn't go off straight away. So you can mess around with these sheets of lining paper for absolutely ages and the adhesive is still workable. So the other thing I'll mention is the fact that the plasterboard ceiling has already been prepped, in the sense that everything has been PVA'd. So all of the white bands of plaster you can see where I've plastered over the tape where the joins are, they've all been PVA'd a couple of times. All those white splodges on the ceiling which have covered up the screw heads, they've all been PVA'd. I've PVA'd everywhere where there might be some dry plaster. And the reason for that, and the reason why you should always PVA over any dry plaster, as I said a zillion times before, is the fact that if you don't, the dry plaster will act like a sponge. It will suck any moisture out of the adhesive, thereby causing it to dry out. And obviously, you know, if your adhesive dries out, the paper isn't going to stick to the surface, is it? So you need to make sure that you do that, and it needs to be dry as well. And also, as you can see, I'm leaving a little bit of an overlap on the adjacent walls where the paper comes down. Now, I'm sure professional decorators don't leave anywhere near as much of that, but they don't need to leave as much margin for error as I do, because I am only an amateur. So the overhangs then, the little lips on the paper which come onto the walls, they're about sort of 10mm, which just means that if I screw up hanging the paper on the walls, then I'm not just going to see a big bare bit of plaster underneath. You know, I've got some protection. I have an insurance policy basically, because there will be some lining paper underneath. So, you know, we're doing quite well now. We're coming to the end of the video, and as I say, you've been seeing this pretty much in real time here. And I'm just sort of finishing off now. I've got a damp rag and I'm just cleaning off any excess adhesive on the paper. Then the paint will stick better. Right folks, so we come to the end of the video then. As usual, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please feel free to subscribe, like, share, tell your family and friends, and enjoy your day where you are. Best wishes. Bye bye.